Well, moving on now, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has held talks with his New Zealand counterpart in New Delhi. Let's take you live to our New Zealand correspondent Jack Nyhof, who's there. Jack, what have the two leaders announced?
The two leaders have announced that they are starting free trade negotiations for a free trade agreement. This is something New Zealand has been seeking for decades. The last time they were negotiating this was about 9 years ago, and that concluded with the visit of Prime Minister John Key then. The relationship has sort of softened since then, but New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon has made an official visit here to Delhi with a massive 2 planes full of delegates to send the message to India that they are serious about trade negotiations. New Zealand is also strengthening defence ties as well with India. They say that this region is important for security on the other side of the Indo-Pacific, so they've announced that India and New Zealand defence forces will train together, and New Zealand will also lead a joint task force which will fight smuggling and piracy in the Indian Ocean as well.
We have decided to strengthen and institutionalize our defence and security partnership. We will work towards a roadmap for joint exercises, training, port visits, and cooperation in defence industry.
For New Zealand, this is about not putting all their eggs in one basket. You just have to look at their two major trade partners. Number one is China, and for a while nations have tried to diversify away for China for security, particularly with China doing things like sailing Navy warships through the Tasman Sea, and last year they also test-fired a ballistic missile into the Pacific. But number two for New Zealand is actually the United States. New Zealand's economy is in a triple-dip recession, the worst downturn since 1991. So reliance on the United States for trade has all of a sudden become very risky with the threat of tariffs looming. The American First policy has also changed things as well for the security of the Pacific. The US recently pausing US aid. About $4 billion worth of it goes to the Pacific. That's problematic because China might fill that void if they don't. So New Zealand's Foreign Minister Winston Peters, while we're here in Delhi with the Prime Minister, he's in Washington speaking to senior members of the Trump administration. He's just met Peter Morocco, the Director of the Office of Foreign Assistance. And earlier he also met Mike Waltz as well, who's the National Security Advisor for the United States. He's making that case not just about trade, but also about security in the Pacific and how vital that US aid is to that region for security to ensure that China isn't sweeping in.
The US role is the most critical role of all because of its size, because it is a Pacific nation, because since 2017, the first Trump administration turned more powerfully towards the Pacific in its oversight and in its concerns than any previous administration. And now they've got Trump back again, and we hope for the same into the future.
So, Ash, this is a serious push for New Zealand, a small nation reliant on trade, reliant on partnerships for their security in an increasingly changing geostrategic environment with the Trump administration, as well as the usual things that we normally talk about around China as well. So the Foreign Minister making the case in the United States, the Prime Minister making the case here in India on the other side of the Pacific. This is a 5-day trip in total. This is day 2 now, and we're expecting further defence announcements as the time goes on. Ash.
Jack Nyhof live there in New Delhi. Thanks so much.